एक सीरी ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ
ਆਪਣੇ ਖੈਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਕੁੱਲ ਮਿਲਾ ਕੇ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਕ ਕਿੱਲੇ ਜ਼ਮੀਨ ਪੈਂਦੇ ਸੀ ਚੱਕਰੇ ਖਾਨ 40 ਕਿੱਲੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਜ਼ਮੀਨ ਸੀ
So this whole story starts, my grandfather was born in the village of Chakrehan in northern Punjab, which is now located in Pakistan, West Punjab, Punjab province, Pakistan.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਚਲੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾਨ ਚੱਕ ਹੀ ਚਲੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੋ ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ
So my grandfather suffered a stroke back in June, and as he was getting older, every time we would talk to him, sometimes he would be lost in his thoughts, and we would say, "Where are you? You know, what are you thinking about? We're talking to you." And he would be in his village, which is in Pakistan, in Chakrehan. So here, after his stroke, he was in the hospital the end of June, and I had to immediately make a decision that there were certain things I needed to find out about our family. I had heard stories from him my whole life about Partition and about his village in Pakistan, and seemingly I was the only one in our entire Khaira family who would ever ask him such questions. After he suffered his stroke, something came over me. I applied for my visa and I booked my ticket to fly to Pakistan. My friend from Azad Kashmir, Gilgit Baltistan, Kashmir region of Pakistan, accompanied me on this journey. So we arrived first here in Rawalpindi, Islamabad, and then Rawalpindi, the sister city, in pouring rain. It was August, so it was supposed to be a very hot month. And this whole time I'm thinking about how my grandfather is sick in the hospital, and I'm going to come here to Pakistan. I'm going to go to the village. I'm going to talk to people, and I'm going to show him pictures of his house, his land, the school where he studied, where he grew up. He left Pakistan, the newly formed Pakistan, in 1947 as a refugee, and found himself close to Patiala in East Punjab, Punjab state in India. And along with his brothers, they fled this region in the violence of partition. And one of his brothers, named Shisha, actually died during the partition in one of the refugee camps. Now, my grandfather's family, in order to stay in Pakistan, they had all converted to Islam when the partition was taking place. So my grandfather had taken the name Muhammad Ali, and his father Lab Singh had taken the name Lab Deen. So the entire family had become Muslim, and still they were forced to leave. They had about 60 acres of land in Chakrehan village, which is close to the border of Jammu and Kashmir, and they were forced to leave all of this because even though they had converted to Islam, they were still considered Sikh, and for that they were labeled as refugees and forced to leave and head to India. The story gets interesting as my grandpa briefly mentioned at one point in my past that we had family that had stayed in Pakistan, that had become Muslim and managed to stay in Pakistan. And this story was, briefly mentioned to me, but it seemed as though Grandpa, with all the pain and trauma of partition and coming over to India and finding himself turning into a Marxist and a communist, spending time in jail for revolutionary activities in India, he came to Canada in 1971, and he wanted to forget. He wanted to forget partition. He wanted to forget all the pain. And for this reason, he never really mentioned about our family that was in Pakistan. And so when grandfather became sick and he suffered his stroke and he was in the hospital, I started asking him more and more questions. I said, you were telling me about this family that we have in Pakistan. And he said, he was in the hospital and he had been staying with us at our house for about a month prior to his stroke, as my grandmother had broken her foot. And prior to that, the two of them were self-sufficient, living in a condo, buying their own groceries and taking care of themselves. But he suffered his stroke while he was staying with us. And so I started asking him about this family, and he briefly mentioned, I have a little black book somewhere in my condo. You're going to have to find it. And there's a name in there. And the name is Tanveer Syed. And when you find that name, you can get a hold of this person, and he's your uncle. He's a Khaira. And so this piqued my interest, and grandfather was sick. I booked my ticket. I traveled to Pakistan while grandfather was still in the hospital. And I managed to locate this family. I called Tanveer Syed Khaira, which is the same last name I have, Khaira, and I talked to him. He was living in London, and he got me in touch with his two brothers, Bilal and Naveed, who were living in Lahore at the time. So my trip starts in Rawalpindi. I spent some time in Rawalpindi and Islamabad. Here I'm at the Hassan Abdal in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, which is a Gurdwara called Panja Sahib in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. So there's many Pashtun Sikhs who live in this area. So we came here, and this was a big thing for me, for my family, just to show them that I had come. I had fulfilled my spiritual obligations by visiting these sacred sites of significance for Sikh people. But the whole time my mind was on my family. My mind was on my family and my village, and wanting to go back to my village and share what I would find with my grandfather, who was back home. So these visits to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and to Panja Sahib Gurdwara and other sites of historical significance. Later we also went to Gurdwara Kartarpur Sahib. So this is kind of how our journey started. We were in Rawalpindi, Islamabad. We headed over to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and we went to Hassan Abdal. And by this point, my friend YAQOOB started to tell me that he wanted to go home. So we had booked our flight to Skardu, which is just off the line of control on the northern side of Indian-occupied Kashmir, which some people consider a part of Azad Kashmir, but Pakistan has actually called it Gilgit Baltistan province. So we took our flight and headed there after visiting the Gurdwara in this northern Punjab and southern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa area. And so my mind is on my family. I'm thinking about who these people are, how closely related they are to us. And it's a very spiritual experience for me. Since a young age, I have felt something pulling me to Pakistan. And my grandfather would often ask me, what's pulling you to Islam? What's pulling you to Pakistan? And often I would have nothing else to say other than, well, it's you. Like, you're the reason. Like, there's something in my blood, and there's something spiritual which is pulling me there. So here you can see the interior of Panja Sahib Gurdwara in Hassan Abdal, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province of Pakistan. And so this was kind of the journey. I had never expected it would happen so fast, but when I saw my grandfather sick in the hospital, and I thought, I need to go now, and I need to find out. I need to rejuvenate his soul and his spirit. Maybe if I bring back some dirt from our village, I bring back some photographs and I talk to people there. And another interesting part of this is my grandfather with Parkinson's and getting old, and not always being mentally there with us, and asking him, where are you? We're talking, and he would be in Chakrehan. He would be in our village, and he would be with his best friend from childhood, whose name was Hussein Fakir. So I asked grandfather more and more about Hussein Fakir. Who was Hussein Fakir? I got information about him before I left. My grandfather knew I was going to Pakistan. But other than that, nobody in my family knew, as this was a very, very spiritual thing for me. I wanted to keep it DL. I wanted to keep it down low. And really nobody knew that I had gone other than my mom, dad, my wife, my kids, and my grandfather. So thinking about Hussein Fakir, who was his sister, Sakina, getting all the information. What was your teacher's name? Where was your village? Who's this family that got left behind? So here I am flying from Islamabad to Skardu on the other side of the line of control. And so here, we've arrived here in Gilgit Baltistan. In the northern areas of Pakistan. My friend YAQOOB, my best friend who took me on this journey, so we've stopped to pick up some sweets before we go visit his family. And this is a studio of one of our friends who lived right on the border with China, just off the Wakhan corridor. So Afghanistan and China were very close by there. And this is way in northern Pakistan, the Pamir mountain range, the Wakhan corridor, and China, Xinjiang province of China, are right close nearby. So I spent 3 weeks up here in northern Pakistan and meditating and thinking about my family and traveling a little bit, attending a wedding. I was treated better than family and accepted as a brother by YAQOOB's family and treated exceptionally well. And every day I would wake up in my little log cabin, which was about 15 minutes away from YAQOOB's village. And I would look out the window as I was making myself tea or chai, and I would look at these huge mountains with glaciers. And I would think that I'm dreaming. Like, I'm not really here, you know. I'm just dreaming right now, and I'm probably at home, asleep in my bed in Sherwood Park or in Ardrossan, and I'm just here in my dreams. And for the past 10, 15 years, I have had recurring dreams about coming to Kashmir. And these were dreams I would often have, some of the most peaceful dreams I would ever have, about being in these beautiful mountains in Kashmir, these glacier-capped, snow-capped mountains. And so finally I was here, and I'm fixated on my family, I'm fixated on my grandfather. All of these things I want to share with my grandfather when I come back. I had written a song for him prior to leaving about his friendship with Hussein. And, I had a little bit of fun along the way as well. As you can see here, just channeling my inner G from growing up in Southside Edmonton, doing a little crip walk in the Pamir mountain range. So Kashmiri crip walk, if that's what you want to call it. Here we're driving down the Karakoram highway, passing army trucks, and I just have to, reiterate that everybody was so kind, so generous, and so friendly to me. And this was one of the most peaceful times of my life. Like, since the moment I arrived in Pakistan, and all of the time I spent there, I had no anger, no hatred, no fear, no anxiety, just complete calmness and peace, where I felt like I was with my brothers, my family. So here I am at one of the highest cricket grounds in the world, playing a cricket tournament I became an honorary member of the Khyber village cricket team and met so many nice people in these northern areas. They treated me so well. And again, with the song I had written for my grandfather, I had actually recorded the video for the song up in these northern areas as well. But the entire time I'm here, I'm peaceful, I'm praying, and I'm just thinking about my family and my grandfather. Like, I cannot wait to get home and tell Grandpa all of this and tell him everything I saw, tell him how peaceful I felt, and just share with him my experiences. And all the while I'm sending pictures back, I'm sending videos back home, and I'm asking about Grandpa. Oh, he's still in the hospital, he's going to be okay, he's getting better. So here I am at a family wedding where I was treated, just like family, just like a family member. And so this was a nice experience for me as well. You can call this Pamiri wedding or a Gilgiti type of wedding, and they gave me so much honor and respect, asking me to dance. And so here I am dancing with the elders who are encouraging me to lead them and go in front. And so just a really amazing experience, and I felt so at one and so at peace with these people all throughout Pakistan, just completely like I had come home. And that's really what this was for me. This was a homecoming or a return home. And so here, after this, here we fly back to Islamabad, we take a bus to Lahore, and here I am at the bus station. And this is Bilal Chacha. Just so happy to see me, and I swear he hugged me for like 5 minutes straight. So this is Bilal Sayyid Khaira, and he was just crying as he hugged me. And even as we had arrived towards the bus station, there was a lot of people there, but YAQOOB, my friend who was sitting with me, he pointed them out immediately. He saw them from the bus and he said, "Bro, that's your family over there." And he could just tell from the facial features, the way we acted, that those are Khairas, that's your family right there. So here's Bilal Sayyid, and here's me arriving at Bilal Chacha's house with the whole family. My Pua, which means father's cousin sister, she's sitting there. My uncles, my aunties, my chache, my Pua, my cousins. So everybody just welcomed me with so much warmth, and as if they had been waiting for this moment for so long, that somebody would come back from their family that had been lost. And so we spent the night singing songs and just hanging out, and as you can tell, we immediately clicked as a family. Like, it was like, yo, this guy's our brother. These are my cousins. And they told me the story about how they had stayed in Pakistan when Grandfather's family had left. So this was Grandpa's cousin's family. Grandpa's cousin, Nattu Khaira, had become Muslim, and their family had stayed in Pakistan. So here we are playing cricket at night. And, the next day we go to the village to Chakrihan, and initially I just go with Bilal, Chacha, Naeem, and Naveed. So before we go to the village, here we are early in the morning. We're taking motorcycles to Old Lahore to drink lassi for breakfast. And I swear we had like 7 or 8 motorcycles. All the motorcycles said our last name, Khaira, on the back. And these guys were so proud to be Khaira, and they were so proud of our lineage. And so here we are driving to the village. Initially, I go to the village with just my 2 uncles. But when I get there, we're walking around. It's blistering hot in Lahore, maybe 46, 47 degrees Celsius. So here I am at one of the oldest trees.
अर्श आप कैसा फील कर रहे हैं इधर आके देख के?
बहुत अच्छा फील कर रहे हैं जी।
अच्छा,
बहुत अच्छा।
और दादा अबू के लिए क्या पैगाम है आपका?
पैगाम ये है कि So my grandpa is sick, and even in this video, my uncle's asking me, what's your message for your grandfather? And I'm sharing a message for my grandpa as I stand at one of the oldest trees in the village, and they're like, we're sure he's going to recognize this tree. And from here, we go to his school, where he studied until 8th grade. They're like, we're sure he's going to recognize this school, you know? And the whole time my thoughts are with my grandpa, and I'm just thinking about him, like, even though it's blistering hot, it's like 47 degrees. Again, here my uncle's asking me, you're at your grandfather's school where he studied. What do you feel? How are you feeling right now? And I'm just so overwhelmed. The heat is not getting to me at all. I'm acknowledging all my cousins who pulled up in like a van, which we were not expecting, like the whole family to show up at the village. Children from the village are following us around. Everybody's inviting us into their homes. And people remember. They remember my grandfather. They're telling me, this is your house, this was your land, this is the school where he studied. And now I'm thinking about Hussein, his best friend, who Grandpa keeps talking about as he gets old. Hussein Fakir, you know, he gets lost in his thoughts. He's in Chakrehan hanging out with Hussein Fakir. So I'm asking Hussein Fakir, his sister Sakina, where are they? And here we are on the roof of our family home where my grandpa grew up. So I'm asking about Hussein Fakir, and people say, you know, he died. Sakina, his sister, is buried in the next village, but Hussein's grave is here. And here's another old tree, which they say your grandfather would definitely recognize. And I say, well, Hussein, does he have any descendants here? And sure enough, I meet Hussein Fakir's grandson. And it's a really powerful spiritual moment. I speak to his grandson. I say, you know, my grandpa was best friends with your grandpa when they were young. And here we are at the grave of Hussein Fakir with his grandson. And we pray. And in this prayer, I felt so spiritual. I felt something so powerful as I prayed next to Hussein Fakir's grandson, remembering the friendship my grandfather had with Hussein Fakir and how this person is the only one his thoughts would turn to when he would be lost in his thoughts. And my parents didn't tell me. And this whole journey was for my grandpa to come home, bring dirt from the village.
Ya Khudaya, Shuma besyar meherban asti, lutfa Khudaya, dua mara kabul konid. Ma dua mikhanam bare dada janam Darshan Khaira और उसकी दोस्ती हुसैन फ़कीर के साथ कि इंशाल्लाह ऐसे मोहब्बत और प्यार के साथ आज भी वो नई जनरेशन है, ऐसे दोस्ती और ऐसी प्यार और मोहब्बत सब जनरेशन में हो। आमीन आमीन या खुदा दुआ हमारा कबूल कीजिए।
Tell your grandpa, rejuvenate his soul, make him one again, make him feel peace. And so we take dirt from the grave of Hussein Fakir. And at this time, I have no idea. The next day, within 24 hours, I'm leaving Pakistan. I'm flying back to Canada. I get back. My parents did not tell me, my family did not tell me that my grandfather actually passed away probably 8 to 10 hours after this moment took place. Me praying at the grave of his best friend with his best friend's grandson, taking dirt from the grave of Hussein Fakir and bringing it home. And within 10 to 12 hours after this moment, my grandfather had left the world back in Canada. So when I was flying back, I had no idea.
दोनों दोस्तों के ये पोते हैं, ग्रैंड चाइल्ड। हाँ जी, एक ग्रैंड चाइल्ड दूसरे ग्रैंड चाइल्ड को ये दे रहा है, कब्र की मिट्टी दे रहा है।
और भाई मेरे दादा जान और आपके चाचा दादा जान सबसे करीब दोस्त है ना। इंशाल्लाह हमारा भी ऐसा कुछ
आपका इनका नंबर भी ले लें ताकि उधर जाके इनसे बात।
You know, here we are at the grave of Baba Nanak, where flowers and a part of a sheet that had covered his body were buried by his Muslim followers in Kartarpur Sahib. Whereas the Muslims felt Nanak was their fakir, their peer. So they buried whatever they had left of him. So I come back and grandfather's gone. And I have no words to express. I'm so awestruck by what has just happened. And they're like, he died, you know. And when I did the coordination of the time, it was like within hours after we had prayed at the grave of Hassan Fakir, hours after I had collected dirt from our village. So at my grandfather's funeral, I put the dirt of Hassan Fakir's grave in my grandfather's coffin, along with dirt from our village. So it's just unbelievable. I felt, you know, that this was a true miracle of God. I had no other way to express what had just happened in my life. When I mentioned the passing of my grandfather to my family in Pakistan, who are all believers in Islam and who have a very strong faith, their words for me were that I represented the presence of my grandfather, allowing him to go full circle and come back to where he had begun. So in essence, his story ended in the same place where it had begun. So he was born in Chakrihan, and I had come there on behalf of him, representing his presence, collecting dirt from our ancestral village, and within a short period after that he had left the world. So he had essentially come full circle, and finishing his story or completing his story in the same place where it had begun.